Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Central Valley Score's Simple Steps to Hiring Your First Employee. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping rules. Please type your questions in the chat. There will be a live question and answer period at the end of the presentation. And today's webinar is being recorded and will be emailed to all participants.
We got a few people clicking in as we're speaking here, so that's great. I'm just moving a little slow.
Before we get started, I'd like to take a quick poll. You'll give us a minute of your time to answer these questions. Are you currently in business? Do you know how many employees you want to hire? Do you have a job description for your employees? And do you plan on doing your own payroll? You'll take a moment to answer those questions. It will help us out for future webinars.
Okay.
All right. Could we have the results there, Christina? All right. All of you are currently in business. All of you know how many employees that you want to hire. Some have a job description and all plan on doing, well, no, not all. Several of you plan on doing your own. Thank you very much. My name is Bob Garcia. I'm co-chapter chair of your Central Valley Score. It's my pleasure this morning to introduce to you Tim Conboy, who will be facilitating today's webinar. He is a Score volunteer, a subject matter expert in human resources, and he is the general manager for Ross Staffing. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning, Bob. Thank you for the nice introduction. And yeah, just to let everybody know, I've got many years in the recruiting side of the industry. I've been a branch manager for Ross Staffing now for 20 years here in Fresno, and originally started my career back in Boston and graduated from Boston University back in the 70s. So that do the math there, but I've been at it for some time. So glad to share some information with everybody this morning, and we'll get through these slides and hopefully provide some great information for you, and you can take it and implement with your businesses. This is, of course, as Bob mentioned, simple steps to hiring your first employee, and huge commitment and step as we move into that first phase of your business. But writing down, this is something that we would do in a live session, so we're not going to spend a lot of time on this today, but some of the things that we do look about is what questions you might have regarding human resources or hiring your first employee, and then expectations that you have for this workshop. So keep that in mind. I'm sure you have some ideas on that, and we'll discuss more at the end of the session today. What you learn today is some of the things we're going to cover is things that to consider before you hire, the hiring process, and then ongoing HR responsibilities, the compliance issues of all this. What does that look like, and keeping you out of trouble on that? So we'll take a look at this and deep dive into that. So things to consider before you hire, make sure you're ready. Make sure you're ready to make that step. And we're going to talk more about all these. Know your legal obligations. And what does that look like on a federal level, state level? Define the role and pay range, considerations for that. And we'll take a look at this. So making sure you're ready, can I afford to hire right now? What does the budget look like? Is there enough steady work to support an employee? Is this, can you support a full-time employee? Can you look at, is it going to be part-time? What's that look like? Is it going to be, should it be 2 employees, 5 employees? What are we looking at? And do I have the cash flow to support an employee? So making sure everything's in place to meet all your obligations on that. So making sure you're ready. And right now, I see it so often, recruiting for, in my position, I support over 50 employers right now in the local market with active job requirements that I'm recruiting on. So many times I'm looking at this and we're talking about backlogs in their order process, and they've got a gap there, and how are we going to meet that gap. Are we turning down work because I don't have the time? Would additional staff help relieve that, and be able to take on that additional work? So that's always a big issue. You're looking at that. Am I missing deadlines because I'm so busy? And again, putting things off, deadlines being extended, 3 months, 6 months, see so much of that right now. And I'm sure we've all experienced that when we're trying to order different things in our daily lives. There's a lack of inventory out there, so we're all dealing with extended deadlines on everything, from products to services. Are additional skills needed to run or grow my business? Bringing in that talent to help streamline your business. Is it somebody on the financial side? Is it somebody in the processing? Is customer service? Is it order? So many different things to address. So would those additional skills, bringing that in, help alleviate that and help you grow the business? Are you equipped with communication and management skills? So you personally doing that self-assessment, making sure that's something that you're comfortable with, something that managing other people, communicating what your needs are, needs and desires, and doing that in an effective way, and helping, making sure it's going to be positive and build that business. So things to consider. And if the answer to these questions is yes, it's time to hire. It's time to pull that, hit that switch, time to pull that plug and make this happen. So as we all know, it's an interesting labor market. And one of the first things we're going to focus on is knowing your legal obligations. Federal employment laws, pretty much in the state of California, there's 3 categories, of employment laws. And what we're looking at is time and pay, discrimination, and safety. So critical. And the litigious nature of everything we do today, very important that we're staying with these 3 groups in mind with everything that we're doing. So we're going to take a look at a little bit more of a deep dive on these. Time and pay, minimum wage. This is interesting. California, of course, we're looking at $7.25 on a federal level, and amazing that hasn't been changed for over 20 years, but something that we hear on the news all the time. But as we know, in California, that's now $15 an hour, and continues to rise. Realistically, here in the Fresno market, we're looking at it. The minimum wage is set at $15 an hour, but we're seeing just for general employment, whether it be a warehouse environment for an order puller or for an administrative assistant, coming in to help with the phones and some filing and things of that nature, we're paying $17, $18 an hour to start. So when you're looking at this with someone like Amazon, who's got a major operation down there, they're paying $21 an hour now, and some of the fast food restaurants are all paying $17 plus for their positions. So it's something to keep in mind. But that's the minimum right now on a federal level, and you must pay higher amount and display both state and federal minimum wage postings. So postings are very critical as well. When you get into this, when you're hiring employees, minimum wage postings, all the general rules and everything else, you have to make sure that those are posted somewhere within your place of business, so all employees can have access to that information. Time and pay, overtime pay. Real quick on that, for non-exempt hourly employees, it's 1.5 must receive, that overtime wages on anything over 40 hours in a work week, anything over 8 hours in a day. So we've got to make sure that overtime is paid on a regular basis, and must be at least 1.5 times regular pay for additional hours. So 8 hours in a day, 40 hours in a week, and that's the rule. And record keeping rules, very critical. This is something you need to maintain these records. And it's for 5 years plus. I mean, it's employee time hourly must be accurately tracked and pay records maintained. And then options. I mean, it can still be a paper timesheet, but there's many software applications now and web-based solutions for tracking employees' hours, and those records have to be maintained on a weekly basis and pay period, and you need to maintain those records for 5 years plus. I've seen audits happen to companies where they're going back 7 years, 10 years. There's no limit on it. They can go back and look at your record keeping on time and pay, and there's several issues to avoid. You want to make sure it's accurate. It's no rounding. Do not round hours. And by that I mean not saying if somebody works 7 minutes, you're going to round it back to the 12 o'clock, whatever it might be. You don't want to be rounding that off. You want to be very accurate, and you want to be maintaining the time to the minute. So do not round. Okay. Child labor laws, child labor rules. And the FLSA includes detailed laws regarding employing minors, and there's also very state-specific child labor laws here in California. So you want to make sure that you're aware of that if you're looking at hiring anybody under the age of 18, and making sure that you're complying with any of those labor laws regarding that. So very specific. And discrimination laws, prohibit employment discrimination in job ads, hiring, compensation, etc. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, 1964, anybody with 15 plus employees, and that's, really any of us involved with hiring, prohibits discrimination based on race, color, religion, gender, or national origin. Now, those are the standard ones under that Title VII. In California, this has been expanded probably to at least 12 based items regarding discrimination. So you want to be very careful and do not discriminate, and make sure that that's in anything that's being posted out there. So we'll talk more about that. Age Discrimination and Employment Act, ADEA, it's 20 plus employees and prohibits discrimination against people age 40 or older, and gets into details on that. So what we'll see is many times you'll see an ad, you used to see ads that would say, looking for a receptionist, recent college graduate, preferred, and you can't be putting that verbiage into those ads at this time. I mean, it's got to be very open, and you cannot discriminate against older Americans. So discrimination laws. We have the Pregnancy Discrimination Act, 15 plus employees, prohibits discrimination based on pregnancy, childbirth, or related conditions. Americans with Disabilities Act, again, prohibits discrimination against people with disabilities, 15 plus employees. And then Equal Pay Act, all employers regardless of size. So all employers, prohibits discrimination based on gender. And we've all heard, how that it has narrowed, but there's still a gap there regarding gender equity pay in the workplace. So I think it's gotten closer to 80 cents on a dollar with that gender gap, and it needs, we're still fighting to improve that. So opening that up, and California's got some very strong laws regarding this Equal Pay Act, and questions that can be asked in the interview process. So we'll be talking more about that. OSHA safety regulations. I do serve on the Society of Human Resources Management here in the Central Valley. I'm on the board for that group. I'm also on the board for the Central Valley Safety Society, and always new regulations, new things coming to our table, to the plate, and we have to keep aware of this constantly. OSHA just came out with new guidelines for COVID. So, we're maintaining awareness of that, and as an employer, we have obligations to make sure that we're keeping abreast of any changes that might be coming down the pipeline with OSHA. So Cal OSHA is very strong, separate to the federal OSHA, but Cal OSHA is very strong in here in the Central Valley with our strong ag presence, and very, very up on awareness and compliance issues. So maintain a safe walking and working surfaces, have plans for fire prevention, other emergencies, medical first aid supplies on hand, alert employees of hazardous chemicals in the workplace, of course, MSDA sheets, constant, and make sure you're aware of that if you're dealing with any kind of hazardous chemicals, whether it's a janitorial service or chemical manufacturing. I mean, you just have to be aware and maybe making sure employees are aware of what they're working with. And then record work related accidents and illnesses, have to make sure you're keeping track of anything related to that. And this can be in an office environment or a manufacturing environment. I mean, it's wide open. So you have to keep track of any incidents that might happen. Other requirements vary by industry regarding training, safety, equipment, et cetera. So, depending on the environments that individuals are working in. So have to be aware of that. And state employment laws, again, it's California. We set the standard for the country. Most things that are adopted here in California, I know as frustrating as it might seem, but they're for the benefit of all, and they're usually adopted by the rest of the country as California comes up with new legislation and new issues protecting people as far as discrimination, unemployment taxes, workers' compensation insurance, disability insurance, and then local regulations. So a lot to review and keep in mind. Now, the role play ranges is something we would do more for a live presentation, but we'll talk more. Let's get right into the job description. There's specific responsibilities that we want to make sure that we're addressing. Make sure that you're taking a very close look at what your expectations are. The specific responsibilities of the position. Getting into more of the hard checkoff list, as far as whether they're going to need to have software skills or telephone skills or whatever it might be. Make sure you're looking at those hard responsibilities. Day-to-day tasks, what that job's going to look like. 8 to 5, what we're talking about, what that day is going to look like. Any required skills or work experience. Again, if they're going to need Excel, QuickBooks, typing, data entry, what is that going to look like? And is if it's in the warehouse, or if it's going to be, order pulling, attention to detail, whatever it might be. So you want to break that down and make sure you've got that completed. Desirable traits, that customer service ability, good customer service skills, empathy, whatever that might look like. What desirable traits do you want to see in that individual to help build your business, and maybe fill in some of the gaps that you don't have, but you want that individual to bring to the table and help strengthen your team. So take a look at that. Work hours, is going to be 8 to 5 is going to be swing shift, evening hours, part-time hours, 6 a.m. Do you need somebody to be in the office as early as 6 a.m., 6 to 2? What is that going to look like? So the work hours, make sure you have that broken down, so you have the expectations will be presented when you get into the interview process. And then part-time or full-time, we talked a little bit about that. Are you ready to hire somebody on full-time at this time, or would a part-time person meet those needs right now? Is it something where you want to look at? Have a lot of employers that look at bringing somebody in on a part-time basis, 20, 30 hours a week, and it can build into a full-time position. So looking at that transition, but making sure that that idea is clear, and you've addressed that, and you're ready to discuss that in the hiring process. So establishing the pay range. This is the big question for everybody, and it's always a challenge. I mean, of course, you want to be competitive in the market, but what does that look like? And using some resources to make sure that you've got a good handle on what you need to offer to find that right person to fill that position with your company and come on as a part of your team. You want to make sure that you're fair and equitable. And so there's some sources that you can look at. There's salary.com, and there's also another source with indeed.com. Indeed is a great resource. They'll give you some detailed ranges of salaries in the local market. So use those sources. There's also plenty of others, but you can kind of look at job postings out there too. If you want to look at, pull up what you're thinking of as far as the type of person that you're going to need, do some searches on that, look at job postings for that, and they'll usually post a salary. You can see what other business owners are offering and for the same kind of opportunity. So and then consulting, networking with your local group. SCORE will also have some resources for you on this as well. So check with industry trade associations. Again, you can look at that. And then review the cost of living in your area. This is a critical piece right now that we're seeing in the Fresno market, where rents have jumped considerably in the past year. And whereas that, it seems to be leveling off right now, but always, keep that in mind. If you've, it's critical. When you look at our market, you look at the Bay Area. It's just incredible. Then, the difference of what we're looking at as far as a pay range here compared to, say, the Bay Area. But that's really based on the cost of living. So that's critical. That's a critical piece that affects pay rates. Hourly or salary. And be careful with this one. Most exempt employees are, exempt. You're looking at executives, professional level, people that maintain, they're self-directed. They're not getting constant supervision on what their job duties are. These are individuals that have control of their time and outcomes. So salaried individuals, be careful with that. Administrative, there's very few times where an administrative individual is going to qualify as a salaried employee. So be aware. There's a the state checkoff list. It's got about 13 questions that help clarify what exactly is a salaried employee. Right now in California, with a $15 an hour pay rate, you're looking at close to $28 an hour, $30 an hour for a salaried position to qualify as a salaried position. So keep that in mind. And misclassifying workers is common. It's very common. People think that they can save themselves some headaches from overtime and hourly requirements, and you can get yourself in real trouble real quick if you're misclassifying workers. So when in doubt, go hourly. Just keep it hourly. And if you think an employee is misclassified as salaried, consult an employment law attorney. Of course, you can always do that. That gets expensive and then determine whether you can change the classification or alter the responsibilities to make the classification accurate. But altering, be careful. It's best to go hourly. and then things to consider before you hire, benefits help attract and retain quality employees. There's been a lot of conversation about the great resignation that's happening out there. We've seen people leaving positions right now, and why? The big question is why. And benefits is a big piece of that. Things you want to look at is pay time off. What's that going to look like? Flexible hours or ability to work from home, and that's a huge issue right now. We're doing a lot of remote type work, working from home, or we're seeing a lot of the hybrid mix where people are working 3 days from home, 2 days in the office, whatever that might look like. So it's one thing to address. Is this a position? Is this an opportunity that can be remote? See much more of that with gas prices at over $5 a gallon, and it became even more popular. So looking at that, is that a possibility? And so having that flex schedule and different opportunities there. Life insurance, is that something? Is that a benefit you can offer? Insurance plans. I mean, that's huge. What are your health benefits? Expensive piece, but when you're weighing the cost of offering benefits, and make sure they comply with federal regulations, but making that an attractive piece of your hiring package. And then things to consider before you hire, something we would look at, but we'll be addressing this later with your questions, and make sure that you're typing those in. We'll look forward to addressing those at the end of the session here, but make sure you're ready. Know your legal obligations and define the role and pay range. So we've covered that a little bit through this process. So now we're going to look at the hiring process, and what does it look like when you're recruiting candidates, screening candidates, and then making that job offer. So let's dive into that. And recruiting candidates, post the ad on job search websites. We've got several. There's a multitude of different sites that right now that you can rely on, and Monster and Indeed Career Builder. That's a few to mention, but there's several resources. There's a cost. You're looking at that, but these are the search engines that are going to help you get that recruiting process going. You start to see available applicants coming through, and it can be overwhelming because some of these sites, Indeed, you'll post something and you'll see 500 resumes popping up. So it's making sure that you're specific of what you're looking for, making it clear what you're looking for, and screening through that process. So that make sure that you're ready to dedicate some time on that process, and you'll see some big results coming back on that. Tell your friends and family about the ad, but resist the temptation to hire unqualified family or friends. That's always, it can be the easiest, but you want to make sure that you're making the smartest decision for your business at this time. So referrals are fantastic. Referrals are probably one of the most effective ways of finding quality and individuals that'll commit to your companies. Don't cut corners because you've got that emotional tie into the hiring process. You want to make sure that you're still going through that qualification process. So make sure that that's consistent. And then again, they're mentioning to post on social media, and that's always tied in many times with your Monster and Indeed applications. LinkedIn is really jumped in hard into the recruiting process, and they offer some posting opportunities as well. And then Facebook, of course, getting the word out into your own network regarding your plans to bring people on. So again, that kind of ties in to that networking opportunity. So just make sure that you're, it's dedicating a lot of time. So don't settle for mediocre candidates. That gets costly, and that can come back and bite you in that process. So make sure you're following through. And then this is the big part, is the screening candidates. Review resumes and cover letters against your job description. People right now in this job market, cover letters have become kind of passe, but it's always a good source to see, kind of get a feeling for that individual's ability to communicate and present themselves. The resume is going to tell you kind of the work history and what they've been doing in the past, and you're looking through that, for any gaps or what they're bringing to the table, what their strength is. But the cover letter can also tell you a little bit about their communication skills. So you want to look at that, and make sure that it's this is all relevant to your job description. What did you post, and realistically, are they going to be a match for what you're looking for right now? And then as you're going through that screening process, have qualified candidates complete a job application. This is always another step. And do some homework. Make sure that you're legally, that application that you're going to have them complete is meeting all the legal requirements that are required by the state. So there's certain things that we cannot ask in California, and we cannot ask how much they made in their last job. You can ask what their salary requirements are, what their aspirations are, but you cannot ask how much they made in that last job. So be careful about that, and know that know what you're looking at. And it's kind of getting into that gender inequity issue. That's why they've taken that out, where we can no longer ask what you made in your last job or jobs. So you got to keep that open and keeping it fair. And increasing a number of states are banning questions about criminal history, that ban the box, and I just mentioned about salary history, but the criminal history is something that you cannot ask through that initial application process. When you get to the hiring, once you've made a offer of employment, and you're discussing a start date for that individual, then you can get into the history, and if there's anything that's going to come up in that. So at that point, you're going to be asking more about their criminal history and salary history, but only until you've made that offer of employment. So as far as a drug test, a background check, you cannot do any of that until you've made that offer of employment. And conducting a remote interview, that's always very popular today. Everything's done remotely. Microsoft Teams, Zoom, whatever it might be. There's a number of different formats, but you can conduct that. FaceTime. We do a lot of FaceTime interviewing in my job, so it's just real quick. Getting an idea of how they present themselves. Going through some initial questions about the job responsibilities, and finding out if we've got a potential match on that. And again, conducting that interview is always, reviewing resumes and plan your questions in advance. Have some idea of what you want to get out of that interview. What are some of the critical questions that you're going to be conducting, asking the applicant, and make sure those questions have a set number, set number of 5 questions that you want to ask every applicant. You want to keep that consistent. So you don't want to be wavering and showing some discrimination, some favoritism towards this person over the other person. You want to make sure that you have a set battery of questions that you want to ask in each individual as you're going into that process. Ask open-ended questions instead of yes or no. You don't want to be, is it sunny out today? Yes. Do you have transportation? Yes. You want to get into more open-ended questions where they can offer some input and give you an idea, again, of how they feel about those certain issues that you're going to be building on as you make that hiring process. And then listen. You're going to be doing mostly listening, so it's going to be ask the question and stop, don't talk, listen. So the candidate should do most of the talking. So it gets very hard to do, but it's something that Zig Ziglar, some of these motivational people taught me many years ago, is that old saying that when you ask the question, the next person that talks wins. So just wait. It can be uncomfortable while you're waiting for that response, but make sure that they're doing most of the talking. So promote that, and then know what questions are illegal for you to ask, and that's a very important issue. Off-limit questions. This is a sample. This is just a sample, but there's many. You cannot be getting into their personal issues, what church they go to, are they planning on having children here in the next year, 2 years? You can see there's a good sample of just stay away. Don't be asking these off-limit questions, and it just can explode. It's not good, and it'll just the next step for this individual will be going to the FMLA and filing a claim, and it's not a good thing. So stay away from these type of questions. And interview activity. This is something that we would do if we were all live and could sit down and have some fun and start doing mock interviews, and it'd be a fun exercise. But do that mentally. Do that with your spouse, and have some fun with that. But before you jump into this interviewing process, it's exhausting, but it's very much worthwhile when you're looking at hiring that individual and making sure you're getting the best person. So doing some practice sessions on your own will pay off immensely, and make sure you have those questions ready to go. Employment testing. We're looking at this, and so you can assess candidates objectively based on skills and aptitudes. There's a number of assessment tests that are offered out there. For myself, with the firm that I'm with, we have well over 800 different skill tests that we can conduct. So most of our candidates are today, in today's world, that they're used to this, and anywhere from, I'd say, 3 to 5 different assessment tests are being given consistently, and so we can make an objective assessment hiring based on what those skills are, and then ensure that you hire the right employee for your business. Making sure that you've got those questions prepared. You know what you're looking for in the skills assessment and in the interview process, and moving forward with that. And all candidates for the same position should be given the same test, as I mentioned. We want to be consistent with that. So if we're looking for somebody, again, with those Excel skills, we're going to be giving that same assessment and going through that process. So you want to make sure that you're consistent with that. And it could be anything as simple as a basic math test to customer service skills, and the technical skills that I mentioned with Excel. There's a number of different tests that can apply to specifically what you might be looking for. And references are very important. We always ask for that. We're looking for former employers. Usually we want to be upfront and looking for those employers that can verify dates of hire. You're not going to, again, the candidates are going to be supplying you with that reference information. So, you're going to get their permission to approach those employers. You want to make sure that you have that permission, because if the person's currently working, you want to make sure it's okay to be contacting those references before you move forward with that. And the references are today they're going to give you very specific details as far as maybe dates of employment. One of the things that we'll ask is if they're rehireable, and that'll be a yes or no. But they're not going to really give you a lot of details. It's so litigious today. It's very hard to get much more than that, unless it's someone that's willing to expand on what those duties might have been with the job. But most cases, you're going to get very limited information. And, you can ask about job duties and history and performance, but it's going to be yes or no. And, do what you can, but still do due diligence on this and complete those references to verify that they did work at those places of employment in the past. And conducting a background check. We talked about this a little bit, but again, you're making the offer, so highlight that. I want to make sure that you understand. You have to have made an offer of employment, and then you can move forward with the background check, and then you can start getting into salary or hourly wage, the start date, benefits, that offer letter, create that, make sure you have that covering what the job description, again, reiterating what those responsibilities are going to be, the hours, the start date, very important, establishing that, and the salary, wages, benefits, what's that going to look like? Is it going to be hourly, and what that's going to look like? So I imagine most instances where we're looking for somebody to come in and be supportive, is it administrative? Is it a little bit of everything? Most of the time it's going to be hourly. So I want to emphasize that. I've seen too many situations where people feel that they can make everybody that they bring in a consultant, on a 1099 basis, and that is not going to work. That's you're setting off all the bells and whistles, and going to get in trouble for that kind of thinking. These individuals are not qualified on a 1099 consulting basis unless you're bringing them in as a partner or as a high-level consultant to reassess your business model or something of that nature. So be aware of that. Don't try and take shortcuts on that, and include additional requirements if needed. Is a drug test going to be required? Are you looking at that? And then next steps for accepting the job offer. So making sure that's all addressed, and make sure any questions. I can see we have a few that are popping up already, so we'll be addressing those in just a little bit. But the ongoing HR responsibilities, completing the required paperwork, setting up payroll, reporting, registering your employee, and then ongoing HR responsibilities. And, we talked about that one with payroll, but the onboarding process starting off right, making sure this is going to set the impression for the whole employment employee relationship. So the onboarding process is really important and a critical part of setting up this relationship from the start. The Form I-9, employee must complete I-9s within 3 days of hiring. And something that once that offer of employment is made, you want to make sure that this process is started. Should be clear and concise. I think everybody's aware of the new I-9, the Form I-9 process. Make sure that you've got the most current revision. Homeland Security has made changes to that constantly, so make sure, like I say, you're using the right documentation for that form, and it's a process where you need to be able to review and see what those forms of identification are that are being used, or whether it's column A, B, or C, or B and C are one, and then column A is a separate type of document that can be used. So make sure you're aware of what that looks like, and make sure you're completing that within 3 days of hiring. So if not be able to complete that, you have to end that offer of employment, and make sure that if the person has worked, they still need to be paid, but it gets rather sticky. So you got to make sure that that's completed. And the I-9 form asks employers to examine employees' documents. I mentioned that. Make sure that you physically see what those documents are, and for any failure to comply with any of this, you can be fined for omissions or incorrect information, and completion template can help. So make sure you know what that looks like. A lot of documentation on that. So that need to pay special attention to that. The Irs Form W-4, again, something we've done forever, and employees must complete the Irs W-4 withholding allowance certificate and define the number of allowances employee want to claim, which affects how much you will withhold from their paychecks. This is a fun one where you're getting into individuals that have never experienced being an employee, maybe, and make sure that you maybe take a little bit of time to help them understand that that number of allowances and everything else that they're completing on this W-4 form is going to impact their payroll and their deductions and the tax withholdings that are going to impact their payroll. So it's always a shock when they get that first check. And payroll and tax withholdings, again, talking about that withholding part of each employee's wages for taxes and pay to the appropriate authority. And there's plenty of services out there that can help you through that processes. So federal income tax, Social Security, and Medicare tax, just a couple. So state obligations, report new hires to the state within 20 days of hiring. And many times, there might be an issue with child support enforcement. So, but they want to track that. They need to know who your new hires are. So you have to make sure that this is reported. So keep that in mind, and register your business to pay pre-employment taxes. So there it is right there. Get that done for you and make that simple. And file required IRS forms. So the 941 form, that's quarterly, 940 annually, and then the W-2 annually. And labor law postings and regulations, we mentioned that earlier. So you want to make sure we're all familiar with what those postings look like. You have to make sure that those are posted in your office for all employees to be able to review and make those available to anyone that wants to verify any of those regulations that might be relevant to that job. And it'll also have, for the state of California, what that minimum wage looks like, and certain regulations that are followed at the state level. And again, federal postings, we know all what that looks like, the equal employment, minimum wage, family medical leave, military rights, workplace safety, and employee polygraph protections. So a plethora of information. I mean, it's all right there, and it breaks it down as far as what that hourly regulations might look like as well. And on the state postings, again, California supersedes what the federal regulations are. And again, minimum wage, California right now, $15 an hour. Unemployment insurance, what that looks like, how that's processed, workers' compensation, what your rights are, how you should file a claim if you should have one, fair employment, and child labor issues, and all that's addressed on that posting. So there is a lot of information, as you can see. This is for Florida, but California is even more in depth. So keep that in mind. Posting requirements. And then, like I mentioned, display mandatory labor law postings where employees can easily view them, update postings constantly and immediately when changes occur, and then consider a reputable postal service to keep you in full compliance. The California State Chamber of Commerce is one that I rely on to keep our postings current. So they're constantly sending updates. And then maintaining employee records. Everything doesn't get dumped into one file. That's one thing you want to keep in mind. There's different files that you want to maintain for each employee. So there's, as I mentioned here, there's 3 files, and one is a personnel file. That's for their resume, their application, that general information that they're going to be completing with you. So make sure you have that. The other one is a payroll file. That's going to have more sensitive information like the W-4 form and the I-9 form and that personal information that's going to have Social Security information and tax information and then a third file for health benefits and what that may look like. So you want to have 3 different files. Don't put all of this into one file. One thing that happens, people don't understand, but a personnel file, employees have access to that whenever they want. They can ask for that file at any time, and you have to comply and make that available to them. So there may be some information that might be a little bit more sensitive, and you want to make sure that that's keeping that in separate files. Then ongoing HR responsibilities. Again, we're looking at completing the required paperwork, setting up payroll, reporting and registering your employee, and then ongoing HR responsibilities. And things to consider before you hire. Know when it is the right time to hire is what we've been talking about. Understanding employment law, define the role, hiring process, boom, 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 and ongoing HR responsibilities. So that initial paperwork and payroll setup, maintaining compliance with your federal, state, and local labor postings, and then maintaining employee records. And this is some information that we have, SCORE resources, and I don't know if Peter's available, but I was going to have him talk a little bit about this at score.org. You can see we've got on-demand webinars, we've got hiring your first employee e-guide, and HR tools and tips. And Peter, would you be available to talk more about that?
Thank you so much, Tim, for joining our webinar today and the information you bring us. We're actually going to send you some of the tools and templates that have been built in here that'll be sent to everybody along with the PowerPoint. And there's additional resources on the next slide, Tim, if we take a look at that. So here's some of the employment determination guide in here. And the one here at the top is EDD. And I can't tell you how much Tim has made emphasis on that, whether you're a contractor versus employee. Common mistakes too many employers make. This is a checklist. We're going to download this and send it to you as part of your handout today. And there's a series of questions on there. And if you answer yes to any one of those questions, they're an employee. So this is a good smell test, we call it, versus that. And Hire a Vet is a resource center, and probably Tim's experienced this, that they have a lot of postings and nobody shows up. But these are people who want to come to work, and you can drill down by state and city and county and so forth. And then there's a website for Roth staffing, paychecks, ADP. The Deluxe Corporation has shifted making checks for banks because they saw everything going online, and there's excellent resources on here. We're going to share with you today on some of the business resources on there. And then and the last one is with another Deluxe on there. So we're going to go through and probably complete the poll questions, and we're going to go through and answer the question, and we're going to share these websites with you, just kind of a show and tell, so that you can look at these at your own leisure afterwards. So if we can go down to the poll questions, and then we'll answer the questions in the queue.
All right, Tim, next slide, please.
Okay.
Okay, and we'll go ahead and take a exit poll. I'll go ahead and launch that on your screen now. Just have a few questions before we get to the Q&A. Was today's HR webinar helpful? And what was today's takeaway from today's presentation? You can select one or all that apply. And would you like to request an HR mentor for your business. So we'll give you a few seconds to complete those. Okay, I'll go ahead and share results here. So everyone found today's webinar helpful. And if you can see, those are the items that everybody found helpful there, Tim. Pretty much all of them there. So.
No, thank you.
And about half and half would like to request an HR mentor for your business. And you can request a mentor by visiting score.org, and you'll just click on the Find a Mentor tab. And your request will be assigned to a mentor, and you'll be contacted within 24 to 48 hours.
Right.
Okay. So
Christine, do
there's
we
a
have,
lot of good questions. I'm sorry, go
yeah,
ahead, Tim.
do you want me to pull down the questions?
Yeah, let's go ahead and get into the questions. Did you get a chance to read that one?
Yeah, let's see. I haven't had a chance yet, but want to thank you for the questions that you're talking about of somebody working remotely. I take it with a virtual assistant, and you know, it is like hiring. It's like hiring any full-time employee. It's the same idea. Now, when you start talking about hiring somebody outside of the country, Philippines, Kenya, then you're looking at visa situations and you know, how to comply with that. I wouldn't be able to give you a lot of information regarding outside of the U.S. You know, somebody in California, somebody from the U.S., they're going to be working based in California, so they got to comply. You got to comply with California rules and regulations. So this is where their payroll is going to be generating. But if you're going to be hiring somebody that's going to be working, say in South Dakota or something like that, then your payroll is based in South Dakota. You're paying that person based in that state. So you have to comply with that state's payroll laws. So you have to look at that on a state-by-state basis. You know, we have individuals that work for us that, you know, they can be working in Chicago. And so when that happens, we have to comply with Illinois state regulations. So it's wherever they're working. So on a virtual assistant, you know, we call it remotely. I mean, a lot of people are working remotely today, and but based on where they're working, those state laws would regulate you know, the issues for that individual. So, you know, Reno, the minimum wage might be a little bit different than California. So you want to be aware of those issues. And so that kind of answers the next question from Darcy. And I hope that answers that question, but it's based on where they are. And if someone does not pass the criminal background after an offer has been made, yes, there's a process that you have to go through to give that individual an opportunity to respond to that that criminal background check. They have to be able to, you have to make it available to them. You have to give them an opportunity to explain what that issue was, and come back and look at the severity of the issue. You have to take it on a case-by-case basis, and you know, if it doesn't meet the criteria that you've established, then you can rescind the offer, but you have to give them the responsibility, and this can take up to 30 days. So it gets very, very entailed, very lengthy, and take a look at that. You know, make sure that you're going to comply with any issues regarding that that criminal background that comes back with issues on it. You got to give them the opportunity before you rescind the offer. And in this digital era and rise in hacking attempts on accounts we have, or services that we use, business productivity. Any words on how to ensure a virtual hire abides and always uses VPN and antivirus and all the tools we should have them be using to lower overall risk and company accounts. Any security, hygiene recommendations or resources to recommend. And yeah, you definitely want to make sure that they're using systems that comply with your IT requirements and your security. What I'd like to do is have Peter address that if anybody's got any input on it. But we can take a look at that. That gets into, are they using your systems? Are they using their own systems? What does that look like? Today, when you're using virtual, when you're using remote employment options, you want to heighten your security parameters around what they're using and take a look at that. How do we design our reference asking process in such a way where they can get their friends that have their own companies to claim they worked for them when. Yeah, that's where you're going in and verifying dates of employment, and it gets very difficult to get any hardcore reference information, but verifying employment. You in the past, I mean, we've had people, bring in their W-2 statements, showing their income verification for the previous year before we make a offer of employment. Once an offer of employment is made, you can start requesting additional information. So, but it gets very tough. I mean, yeah. Is it their friends that they're just putting there on a reference sheet? But you can get into more detailed questions to verify that it is a place of employment, and you can verify addresses and general information, and get into details with that. Let's see, we're bouncing around here a little bit, but there are a number of questions here. Let's see.
You want me to read off the ones that are pending there, Tim?
I think we're down to the last two, and Anonymous has a lot of details here. But with hiring a personal assistant, virtual assistant, where might we go to find one person that can do all the things we could use support with, rather than hiring 2 to 4 people with that specialize? And it's just making sure that your job description is clear on this. What are you looking for? You need somebody that's going to be able to handle several different areas, from administrative skills to accounting skills. Make sure that that's in the job description. You want to make sure that you've got that individual that can wear several hats or grow into several different areas and take on that responsibility. So you want to look at that and what do you need? What is it going to be? Somebody that can just answer the phones, or is it somebody that's going to be doing payroll to customer service to accounts payable, accounts receivable, that general ledger, interfacing with your CPA, somebody that has that capability. So making sure that you've got everything covered. Somebody that can pull an order and ship it. Whatever it might be. You want to look at what those skills are going to be. So making sure that you're getting the right person. So 3 months down the road, you're seeing a gap there in the skills that you need to have completed. So make sure that you've got everything in that initial job description of what you're looking for. If you're looking at that possibility where you're going to need an additional person or 2 people, in 6 months to a year, then have that on the game plan. But for right now, for that initial hire, you want to make sure that you have everything, all your wish list compiled and in that job description. So make sure that you're getting the right person for that position. And handbooks are a touchy subject, but there are guidelines.
We're going to get in that with a screen share here.
Good. good, Peter, because yeah, that's
Yeah,
what
so
I was
if
going
you-
to say. There's
If you want to take this down and let Christine do a screen share, we're going to
Excellent.
answer a lot of these questions, and mainly for all of you that are on the call today will receive a copy of this. But more importantly, you will be able to go through this. So Christina, do you want to start with the SCORE website first and do a screen share? Everyone will be sent a copy of the link and the downloads and the EDD questionnaire as an attachment in today's presentation. So do you want to show them what's available on the SCORE website, Christina, and how they can type that in there in the search engine?
Yeah, I can do that, Peter. So this is the SCORE website. Oh, do you still see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so the website is score.org. To request a mentor, you're going to click on this Find a Mentor tab, and it's going to ask you for your zip code here. So just put in your zip code and you will be sent to a short form to fill out. As soon as you hit that form, submit, we receive that form right away to whichever chapter it goes to. And a mentor contacts you within 24 to 48 hours. So it's a pretty fast process. We have a Take a Workshop tab here available. These here, it'll show you live webinars, the library. We have courses on demand and local workshops here. One that we did want to show you, if you come up here to the search engine, you can type in human resources. Let's go ahead and search. And there are 1,538 results for human resources. So a lot of information here for you. A lot of these will be like live events, recorded webinars, a lot of e-guides that are available. So the resources go on and on.
and you can get more specific with that search, of course.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And the next website we're going to share with you, you'll receive this link also along with the deluxe. And we're just going to show the boxes in here. And someone was talking about employee handbook. I know when I first started my business, but this gives you a broader scope, but you need to see a professional to nail that down. So as you can see in here, you can click on any one of these. And Tim talked about FLSA. That's an issue on there on overtime. How do you calculate that? These are really some really good tips for you. So anyway, this is deluxe.com. We'll be sending these links to you. And that should answer some remaining questions. But more importantly, these will be things you want to do research ongoing, not just from today. So you'll receive the PowerPoints as a reference point, so you go back and forth as you build this. And again, please contact us if you have any questions at all, and we'll get someone there to help you. And this e-guide you're going to download, we're going to include this in the attachment today for you. It's very helpful, and hope you guys enjoy it. And more importantly, give us a like on Facebook if you like today's event. So with that, Tim, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day off.
Thank you.
To come in and help us today. And more importantly, we're here to help small businesses, and we wish you all a great success. Thank you, everybody.